Because all we knew was our grandparents, you know, and then I asked Mum, I said, oh, do you remember your family line? And she's like, no, we didn't really get told that. Yeah, just sort of identity sort of thing that we all missed out on growing up. Who's our family and where we come from. I didn't know anything until I started this research. I wanted to do this to let Mum know who she is and the family know where they're from.
Well, Willie Crowe is my mother's father, who's junior, and then you've got Willie Crowe Senior and Emma Dunne, which is the grandparents of the Crowe family.
It's sort of finding out more as you're getting older and trying to connect the dots and, yeah, make sense of it yourself so you can sort of share it the best way you can.
You know, Dunne's Beach down there. Dunne's Beach is part of my story, part of my place. One of my great-grandparents' name was Willie Crowe. This young fella's named Willie Crowe.
My father and Mum never spoke about culture when I was growing up. I was at a white man's school and raised that way. Yeah, so I don't really know about mine. And it's sad. Yeah. It's really sad.
Because I don't know much and I want to learn and I want to, you know, help what I can or what can I do or yeah, just help the family out and just try and grab as much information that I can.
Where are we from? Right, a lot of the elders didn't talk about that, you know, unless we ask questions, but who asks their parents at a young age, where are we from?
Because it's our job to try and piece back the history that we've lost.
Well, it's important to know all this family history and be able to reconnect back to country and be able to share this with our children and future generations.
You know, this is part of who we are. This has a songline to us.
So our younger ones are more vocal, they're more outspoken, and they're looking for answers all the time. So, yeah, it's very, to us it's a very important subject.
That's who we are through our blood. We are Crows. And you start to realise these Crows had a dreaming path. They were all connected.
I didn't really know where to start first, so I didn't have anybody to lead me, so I sort of went, oh well, I just checked the internet first, the first thing, you know, just check the internet out, see who are these two people are. And so after that I went to the State Library and I was thinking, I wonder if there's a photo of them. When I seen a photo of them too, I was like, wow. I was like, is this really them? I just couldn't believe that I've actually found a photo.
Well, the nature of this research is often, there's a lot of fragmented sources, and often the problem with this material is that you've got the same person having several different names according to what property they're working at and how they're known locally versus somewhere else. It's like a great big jigsaw puzzle that you're forever piecing together, but you can actually pull that apart with enough research.
They worked for a man named Charles Dunne over just down the road here on Coolison Creek. They had the Dunne family had a property there. On the property, they grew tobacco, cane on the Dunne property, which was called Bundora Station. So yeah, they worked at, they also cut down the trees, sent them down to Noosa, down the creek.
In the 1870s, for settlers coming here, they really concentrated just on getting the timber out, and that they did that along down the creeks, coming from where Kinkin is now and coming sort of from where Coran and Crowe is, down the creeks. And the first timber port of this area, and it was actually an industry founded town, was at Mill Point, which is near Lander Point. The interesting thing about Willie Dunne, or he's sometimes called Willie Crowe, King Willie, King Billy, different names. Again, you see there's a number of different names for the same person. He seems to be one of the people that worked on this.
They took on the name Dunne. Emma didn't have a last name; she was just known as Emma. And Willie, he was his original name was Willie Crowe. He was a senior. He had a son named Willie Crowe Jr. So I think with them carrying that name Dunne sort of protected them with being removed and stuff like that. Because there was a couple of people that they actually worked with, like King Tommy of Noosa, King Brown and Susie. They was sort of close and they worked together, but they was removed and they was taken to Cherbourg. But Willie and Emma Dunne, they end up staying on country and they end up passing away on country. So I think the reason why they didn't get removed was because they had that Dunne name.
The really earliest accounts, when, like you're talking about the 1830s and 40s, Europeans actually knew a lot of the Aboriginal people and their families individually, and they knew their characters, and they'd comment on, they'd go along on hunts and do things together. But as the whole social Darwinism sort of started to develop, you see this distancing where suddenly, instead of talking about individuals, there's suddenly a mob, there's just the blacks, there's like a group, It's sad to see, but that is what happened over time. It was a common practice for Aboriginal people to take on the name of whoever they worked for as a means of, it served a couple of things. One, it showed you were connected with a particular homestead, so you were part of the staff. And so that was a form of protection, particularly against the native police, because in the 1860s and later you had the native police coming through here. They actually did a major drive all the way to Teewah on the other side of the lake here, a massacre there. So if you could say, I belong to, I work for such and such, that was a way of ensuring you didn't necessarily get killed. But there's plenty of accounts of Aboriginal people getting killed on the stations anyway. That was going on here in that period, and it would have been pretty awful. And they basically worked to sort of clear the way for settlers. So very often you'd find settlement hadn't begun, or there was just one or two settlers, and then the native police would get called in, and you'd have this genocide, and then settlement would continue. Because they didn't record specifically what they did, and they often whitewashed it, we don't really have numbers for massacres, including the Teewah one.
I've heard a lot of stories of other people, how they was treated, like the massacres and the stolen generation. With Mum's great-grandparents, Willie and Emma Dunne, it wasn't like that. They weren't being shot at, they weren't being chased, they to what I see, they moved freely around the country. They was able to live off the land, they was able to work wherever they wanted to work, you know. Yeah, even the articles that I found, you know, there were good things said about them.
Life for Europeans and Aboriginal people in the colonial era was a lot rougher than that. You just had to sort of make do with what you could grow or what odd jobs were around. And because we're in a regional area, often Aboriginal people were doing a bit of, it was almost like running a counter economy in a way. They, to whatever extent they could live off the land, they did, and fishing and oystering and you know, getting plant foods. And then they would supplement it by doing odd work. And this is the whole thing of, you know, they say, oh, they were going on a walkabout. Well, no, actually what was really going on was they didn't want to be full-time employees, you know, like factory slaves. They would only take what they needed of work around them. So you'll find when, you know, when they did the timber getting, it would be when they were in the area and when it suited them, you know, because they had other things. They had other social commitments, they had ceremonial commitments, and also they could get by doing a variety of jobs, which is actually a lot more, gives them a lot more independence. And you have to remember that people would, Aboriginal people were relying on bits of busking and selling odd stuff as part of their income at the time. So we have those wonderful photos of him in Teewah with his dogs and with Emma, and Emma's got a tray, and if you look closely it's ferns, and we know from other accounts that also Susan, Chili and quite a few of them would get ferns and sell them to people at the Teewah Hotel. At the time, Teewah Hotel was sort of the only thing there.
What I heard about Pop living on country, he walked and walked, you know, and I believe my grandmother would have done that too, Emma Dunne, you know. So, well, they had no transports and that in those days, so they had to walk.
Mostly the accounts we have are of him and Emma being around, he's mentioned at Lake Cootharaba and at Gympie, mentioned at Teewah and Noosa, also down at Yandina. So roughly in the Kabi area. There's an incredible story that that Emma used to, because of her work at the hotel in Gympie, she would have to sometimes walk from the camp here to, from what I can work out, probably the camp at Cootharaba Hill, because it says, because the breastplate that was given to her says the Cootharaba Hotel, and it was in Gympie at the time. And I've worked out that's like a 8-hour walk, you know, so I think it must have been that she'd stay over at the camp there and then have to come back here. A lot of these long journeys were often done by Aboriginal people, and just for the little bit of work they could get, and also just because they love walking country.
Willie Crowe Jr. was born at Kenilworth. 1878 he was born. He was a station hand around the upper Mary River area. Then it sort of goes blank, where he was removed in 1910, I think it was. He was removed to Cherbourg.
Yeah, well, what I know about Pop Crowe, Willie Crowe, he was my grandfather. He was my mother's father. Yeah, there were several daughters he had. My mother, Auntie Ellen Pitt, Auntie Zilla Chapman, Auntie Janet Downers, Auntie Nolene Wallace, and Uncle Matthew Crowe. I think he was a corroboree man, my grandfather, and I believe that's where my son and my grandsons now, they taken after him, which is good. They're keeping the tradition going.
My grandfather, Willie Crowe Jr., wonderful horseman. He was just a person that you could get along with. I know he was a wonderful grandfather. He used to make whips, big stock whips. And I could remember one time he lined us all up, because I don't know what we were doing, wasting water or something, and we were only like, he went from the eldest one, right down to the baby, but he never ever hit us. He just cracked his whip beside us, and that was good enough for us. We never ever did wrong, not while he was around. And Nan, she was a well-known Nulla Nulla lady, which is a fighting lady. She used the Nulla Nulla stick. Very well known for that. No one mucked around with her. And wonderful person, because they both adopted children. They had their own, but they took in other children that were sort of just left.
When they did come on Cherbourg, you know, it was hard for them to live there because there was a lot of the people that came there didn't have any parents at that time, and they were put in the dormitory.
And we ended up in a dormitory. Now from that thing, I can't recall what happened there, and but we ended up in the dormitory, and Nan, that's the last time I seen Nan. Seen Mum. Cheryl went to the girls' dormitory, me, the boys' dormitory with my other two brothers, Bill and Shane. And that experience there in that dormitory there, at that time was rough.
And that was all hard because it was all run under white man law. Even if they wanted to go to town, you know, to go shopping, they had to get a permit from the white man. And if you lost that permit, you'll get locked up. But yeah, it was very hard then for our people to live there. Even as I was growing up, it was hard.
Now, my grandmother could speak, that's Annie Crowe, she could speak 5 different dialects, which must have been all over the Sunshine Coast and the Waka tribe. My grandfather could speak 3. And when we were growing up, how am I going to say this? When white men invaded us, they weren't allowed to teach us any languages.
They had a law saying if you ever talk your language or share your history, you'll be cut from your rations, or your kids will be taken away, or you'll be removed to another settlement. Like, they didn't want that information to be passed on. So it was sort of the rule of those years. You can't talk about your history or your language or your culture. They just want to make you civilised, which is sad, because it did lose a lot of connection to country, and not only country, their culture, their history, their family history. They lost a whole lot of it.
Well, life would have been hard. Life would have been hard for them, but they survived. You know, they didn't let it beat them, because I believe what they learned then, it rubbed off onto us now, you know, and I believe that's why we become stronger today, because of our grandparents.
It's important because if they pass and there's the knowledge gone and everybody, we don't know nothing about our history, so it's good for us so we can learn from them, so we can tell our own little family and stuff.
Like, no one sat me down and told me stories, you know, and just today, just to listen to this, and that's the first time that's happened for me. So, yeah, just to have that a little bit of knowledge of my background, yeah, my family background, and it's good.
Our elders are not going to be here forever, sort of thing to tell us, so it's literally up to us younger ones to tell the family, you know, this is where we're from.
This is a journey for me. This is a journey for me. And to sit and listen to my sisters, you know, things that I never knew. It was just so, it was awesome, you know, just to sit and listen to them.
So, yeah. So I'm overwhelmed about everything, but it's just starting to hit.
They're going to be asking me, you know, oh, Dad, where your family tree? And you know, I'll sit and I'll tell them then. Yeah, I'll tell them, pass it on.
Because it's who we are, it's our history, it's our culture, it's what makes us up, it's our identity, like, yeah, where we come from, and it's something to be proud of.
I always say what is lost is never lost forever. It can be found.
You just sort of, you feel that spirit and you feel home when you are here and reconnecting back to country.
Well, my hope is for the future, that my loved ones that going to keep on the name of the Crowe family, that they keep doing what they're doing, you know, keep progressing, letting Willie Crowe shine that way, and bring that love out that's been there between him and Nan, you know.
Their spirit still lives on. They might be gone, but the spirit lives on through us. People are returning, they're coming back because they want that sense of knowing their identity. I know I talk about indigeneity, that's identity really. And when you got identity, you feel stronger. And you have that sense of belonging.
To all my Crowe family, you keep strong, and I love you.